Salve and welcome. Today we are in John chapter 2, finishing off the last paragraph of that chapter with verses 24 and 25. In our next video, we're going to compare this last paragraph of our Latin translation to the Greek, see how well the Latin's done. I believe the last paragraph did quite well, only a few issues, only one real sense change, and it wasn't a big change. So I have reasonably high hopes for our Latin. Here is our rubric, everything that we're looking for as we go through this text. No, I haven't updated it yet. As I said, eventually I'll get around to it. Well, let's go ahead and get started. Ipse autem Jesus non credibat, semet ipsum eis eo quod ipse nocet omnes, et quia opes e non erat ut, quis testimonium parhiberet, et de homine ipse enim sciebat, quid esset in homine. And there we go. Very confusing passage here. Ipse autem Jesus non, and here's our verb, bat, imperfect. Seen this form enough times by now that shouldn't need to parse it. Just go ahead and know there are a variety of different translations. We'll get to them in a minute. We know this non negates whatever it is, so not. Jesus is going to be our subject. Shouldn't write subject under there. Jesus. Autem means but. And then here we have an interesting word, ipse. Ipse, ipsa, ipsum, meaning self. So, but Jesus himself not credebat. Translate that after taking a look at the rest of verse 24. Semet ipsum, nocet. This T right here with the SSE. This tells us that we have a subjunctive, I think. Yes, subjunctive. Brain went blank there because I was thinking about the Greek. The Greek uses an articular infinitive, and in this case you've got a subjunctive. So yeah, that's 6 one way, half a dozen the other. Nocet could be the pluperfect if we had an iota right there. And the stem itself would have to be different. But I can't think now what the third principal part of this word even is. So I think since there's no iota, this is just going to be the present infinitive with the personal endings on the end. So making this third person singular imperfect. Active, subjunctive. So, knew was knowing. Subject of that is going to be ipse, nominative, singular, masculine, which reminds me, nominative, singular, masculine, because he himself with an L, nocet omnes, omnes, because this is singular, this has to be accusative plural, masculine, all, and we would insert the word people. Quod could either be from qui quod, or it could be the word because. We won't know that without understanding everything right here. So we have just these words to tell us what that's doing. Semet, our first one, is probably going to be a pretty frustrating word. Now there are a couple suffixes that exist in Latin. We've got, already misspelling things. We've got we, which means or. We've got ne, which means this is a question. And then we've got met, which means self. And there might be another couple, but these are the primary ones. Met is not as common as, at least ne is, and we. Come to think of it, I can't really think of more than one location where I've really ever seen we, but we is extremely frustrating. The first time that I ran into it in the wild reading Virgil, I had no clue what it was. So I skipped it. And it didn't hurt my translation, but it did hurt my understanding of Latin, because it wasn't for quite a while, I think, afterward, until like the second time I ran into it, and I'm not sure when that was, when I actually finally learned what the stupid thing was. What I should have done at the time is I should have marked it and then asked the teacher, taken the time to ask the embarrassing question, I don't know what I'm doing. But here we have met is tacked on to se, sui sibi se se, which itself means self, but specifically the subject self. So this met, rather than just translating it as self, it's going to make this just that much more emphatic. And we're going to have to figure out some way to translate this into English. Se has to be ablative or accusative. Credebat would normally take a dative in something as its object, but since we've got ipsum here, which is accusative, could be the neuter. However, since it's Jesus, and there's nothing else around here except the se, ipsum has to refer back to se, and that means both of them are accusative. It's going to be masculine. That means that credebat can't be taking a dative as its object, and that means that this ace here from is, ea, id is not the object of credebat, but instead we've got an accusative being entrusted to a dative. So dative, plural, indirect object, to them. And now the extremely emphatic form of translating this. So we've got a self, himself, and himself, and himself. Oh boy. Let's do the verb first. But Jesus himself was not trusting to them. Began to not trust, that's not going to work. Kept not trusting, I don't think so. Used to not trust, just like kept, no. Trusted. I think I'm going to go with the emphatic form here since we've got so much emphasis right there too. So, trust, did not. But Jesus himself did not trust his very own self to them. That's how I'm going to translate that. So we've got all three of them in there, sort of. His very own, gosh, self. That's about all I can think to do to show just how very emphatic that is right there. Gosh, like a dozen exclamation points. Okay, now, eo and quod. Eo could be from is, ea, id, but then we'd have to ask, why is it there? We've already got a dative right there. What possible purpose could this serve? The other option is from eo ire, I go. Again, why would we need that there? We don't even have direct discourse going on here, so that doesn't work. That means it must be something else. If it's not is, id, if it's not a verb, what's left? Well, an interesting adverb that, honestly, I'd forgotten about until today. So this adverb has a variety of meanings. It's got for that, on that account, and to that point. It's going to be one of those three. So, but Jesus himself did not trust to them for that which he himself knew all, or for that because he himself knew. I'm going to go with because. That one, I think, makes the most sense. Running out of room. So much stuff going on here. And then, new. There we go with verse 24. It has been a 9-minute video or something so far. Let's try to get through 25. Not rushing, but not slow. And that, or because, opus ei non erat, and this is another instance where we've got a interesting turn of phrase, not quite the same way that met works or eo works, but opus plus a form of sum shows us necessity. So we should translate this as that there was need to an indirect object, so dative singular. It's going to be masculine, referring to Jesus, to him or for him. Non negates it, not. There was, so it's not going to be there was work, but there was need. Opus has a variety of different phrases that it makes up with the different words, and this is just the one with erat. So, and because or and that there was not need to him or for him, ut, looking ahead, erat, infinitive ending there with a personal, it's going to be subjunctive. That is probably showing purpose. Quis, after si, nisi, numen, ne. This is not one of those, so this is not alle quis, but it's just who or someone. Brain's failing me again. It's nominative, singular, masculine, from the interrogative form. So that someone, testimonium perheberat. This is a word that we've had trouble with in the past, but the trouble was all on my part for misreading that as prohiberat rather than perhiberat. This is just the way that Latin is able to make the form of the word that means to witness, like martyreo from Greek. So third singular, imperfect subjunctive, active, indicative, just made or bear witness. Accusative, singular, and I believe this is neuter from the UN. That someone bear witness de homine, ipse ipsa opsum. Clearly this is the end of a clause right there. Prepositional phrase has to stop there. Ipse can't be part of that. It would have to be ipso plus ablative, singular, masculine, about man. Could be mankind or could be a specific man. Moving on. I don't think there's anything else we need to do right there. So we translate this subjunctive clause, this ut clause, as an indicative. Himself for, say, looking ahead, no other instance, so we do need to say he himself. Skio, skire, bat, third singular, imperfect, active, and indicative. Was knowing, used to know, kept knowing, began to know, knew. Quid, also from quis quid. What? That's going to be accusative or nominative. Looking here, we don't have a subject, so nominative is the correct one. Singular, neuter. What? Esset, sum esse. We've seen this before somewhere. I don't remember. It was either in this paragraph or the paragraph before. This is going to be third. The T, singular, imperfect, because it's built off of the infinitive, so just like that right there. Active, indicative. What might be, or more properly translated in English, was. In prepositional phrase, exactly the same as that. Not going to bother parsing it. In man. Whew. There we go. Now let's take a look at it in its own context. See if what I wrote down actually makes any sense. But Jesus himself did not trust his very own self to them on that account, because he himself knew all people, and because there was not need for him that someone bear witness about man, for he himself was knowing, began to know, used to know, knew. I think it's going to be the emphatic again. Knew what might be in man, what was in man. Hoi, oi, oi. I don't know exactly what these two verses together mean. That's something you'll have to ask your pastor. Let's look at the greater context and then finish this chapter, be done with it, except comparison video. But when he was at Jerusalem in Passover, in festival day, many people believed in his name, seeing his signs, which he was doing, he kept doing, he began to do. But Jesus himself did not trust his very own self to them on that account, because he himself knew all people, and because there was not need for him that someone bear witness about man, for he himself knew what was in man. Oh, so much power behind that. All right, thank you very much for joining me. I hope this has not been horribly confusing. I hope you join me for whatever it is we're translating next week. Wale.
Hey, not asleep yet? That's okay. I've got tons of other equally sleep-inducing videos for you to watch. Check them out.